A few months earlier, many individuals learned about company job reductions in the most distant manner possible. Not through a gathering or an advance notice, but through an unexpected calendar request, a brief note, or a supervisor who suddenly avoided looking directly at them. For some people, the cuts did not affect them personally. The reductions hit their leader, or the person who brought them into the company, or half the group they worked with daily. And that experience brings up a basic question. If the economy performs well, why does it seem as though everyone struggles to stay steady? In 2025 by itself, employers in the United States declared more than 1 million position losses. In October, businesses revealed over 153,000 job cuts in 1 month alone, the largest October amount in over 20 years. Meanwhile, the rate of people without work rose to 4.6%, its highest mark in 4 years. However, many sources still claim the employment field remains healthy. The common reason often appears logical in writing. The jobless rate increases because more individuals join the group seeking work. New hiring moves slower, but it does not fall apart completely. The economy simply requires time to find balance again. Yet that account does not align with what people truly face. Almost 2 million Americans have lacked employment for 6 months or more. Workers new to the field receive demands for years of practice just to begin. Older employees discover that long periods of skill suddenly turn into a disadvantage. And those who keep their positions quietly handle the tasks of 2 or 3 people, hoping they avoid the next round. This presentation does not aim to create fear or point fingers at specific persons. It seeks to describe why individuals from various age groups and work fields feel the same weight at the same moment, and why this situation does not resemble a short pause. When a system appears correct in reports, but seems damaged in daily life, the issue usually lies not with the people, but with the foundation beneath it. When leaders and news titles discuss a strong employment field, they often highlight one measure first, the jobless rate. When that figure rises, the reason frequently sounds comforting. More people enter the group seeking work. More individuals search for positions. That should indicate positive change. But the jobless rate does not reveal how long people have lacked work. It does not show how many individuals send requests for months without any reply. And it certainly does not indicate how safe the existing positions truly remain for those who still hold them. At present, almost 2 million Americans have faced lack of work for 6 months or longer. That situation does not represent a brief break between roles. That means people use up their saved money, delay important life choices, and quietly rethink how much chance they can handle. Meanwhile, available positions have decreased. New hiring has moved slower, and businesses show much greater care in selection than they did only a few years earlier. This marks the point where the difference begins. In reports, a growing jobless rate can appear as a sign of trust. People feel secure enough to seek better options. In truth, many individuals do not leave positions by choice. Forces push them out, costs drive them away, or quiet changes replace them. And when they attempt to return to the field, they encounter blocked announcements, empty listings, and openings that seem available but never fill. A strong employment field also expects that a position provides enough support for steady life. But pay amounts have not matched the rising expenses of daily needs for most employees. Even individuals who officially hold work feel greater stretch each month. Housing rent, insurance costs, food prices, and loan payments pay no attention to whether main figures appear positive. Therefore, when people state that the employment field feels poor, they do not misunderstand the figures. They react to a form of truth that the figures do not completely record. And the greater issue lies in the fact that the most trusted numbers often receive changes months afterward. That marks where the true account begins. One of the main reasons the employment field feels worse than it appears comes from timing. Most individuals face job cuts, hiring stops, and refusal messages as they happen. The figures meant to describe those events often arrive months later, and even then they do not always remain unchanged. In 2025, the Bureau of Labor Statistics issued an early major correction that showed payroll work counts had received too high a value by 911,000 positions over the previous year. That means hundreds of thousands of roles first reported as added quietly disappeared later. It ranked as one of the biggest downward changes ever noted. And this event did not stand alone. Large downward changes have now occurred several years in sequence, showing a pattern where the employment field appears stronger in immediate reports than it truly proves. By the moment corrections happen, The public discussion has already shifted forward and the affected individuals have already faced the results. This explains why so many employees feel misled. They recognize hiring slows because they live through it. They recognize job cuts spread because they see colleagues vanish. But when the figures finally admit the slowdown, they often do so without notice, hidden in technical changes that avoid main attention. The outcome creates a delayed response circle. Decision makers and observers refer to hopeful figures that later prove too high, while employees wonder why their daily truth never matches the account presented. And when belief in the figures begins to weaken, people cease accepting comforting words entirely. Because if work growth can disappear through changes of almost 1 million roles afterward, then the feeling of steady ground that people should depend on becomes weak at best. And once trust breaks, businesses do not await the next report. They reduce expenses. They decrease hiring. And they begin readying for what they observe approaching, even if official figures have not yet matched reality. For a long period, job cuts receive treatment as separate events. A poor sales period, a company error, a field facing hard times. If you avoided that work area, you should remain protected. That belief no longer stands true. In 2025, position reductions have moved far beyond one work area. Technology businesses that once offered promises of steady roles now reduce staff numbers. Stores close branches. Goods movement and factory companies adjust to lower need. Even the government workforce, long viewed as a secure place, has witnessed almost 300,000 employees forced out or marked for reductions through payment offers, reorganizations, and spending limits. What sets this apart from earlier patterns lies not only in the amount of cuts, but in the manner they occur. Instead of one major shock followed by improvement, businesses reduce in stages. Smaller groups, quieter groups, fewer news stories, but ongoing weight. That produces an employment field where doubt never truly ends. Employees do not respond to one event. They exist in a condition of constant care. This change affects actions across the whole economy. Workers stop accepting chances. They postpone changing positions. They agree to heavier tasks to avoid notice. Businesses meanwhile prepare, as if staff numbers will continue to fall, not rise. Tasks combine, groups stretch further, and hiring occurs only when completely required. The concept of a secure position begins to fade. It no longer suffices to work in the correct field or hold the proper qualifications. Steady life now relies on spending plans, profit edges, machine plans, and investor hopes. Elements that single employees cannot control. And once job cuts become a built-in part rather than a short answer, the harm extends beyond money matters. It reaches the mind. Because when everyone feels easy to replace, fear joins the work description. When people discuss job cuts, the talk usually ends at earnings. You lose pay amounts. You lose health coverage. You lose steady ground. But what seldom receives attention involves what occurs below that level. For many employees, an emergency savings amount no longer serves emergencies alone. It turns into a cut protection amount. Saved funds meant for health problems, vehicle fixes, or a brief pause between roles suddenly become the main support to remain above water. And once that protection begins to shrink, every choice feels heavier. There also exists the identity impact. In American society, work does not merely provide money. It explains personal value. When that vanishes overnight, people do not only lose earnings, they lose a sense of purpose. Even highly trained, long-skilled employees can begin doubting their worth. Not because their abilities changed, but because the field did. What worsens this situation involves what happens to those who avoid the cuts. Those who stay often take on the tasks of 2 or 3 past colleagues. Final dates do not shift. Expected results do not lower. Groups grow smaller, but the required work must remain equal. Over time, tension becomes usual, and the fear never completely leaves. Every new gathering request feels doubtful. Every company message causes worry. People stop offering ideas. They stop using leave time, not because they choose to, but because being seen suddenly feels risky. This produces a workforce that officially holds positions but remains always tense. And when a whole employment field operates under that type of weight, output does not increase. New ideas do not grow well. Steady conditions do not improve. They weaken quietly, one tired employee at a time. For younger employees, the issue does not limit to a slow employment field. The main entrance appears closed with a lock. Beginning roles should allow people to start. They should exchange lower pay for learning during work, guidance, and a clear future path. But in the current field, many of those roles exist only in title. Position announcements marked as beginning regularly demand 3 to 5 years of practice, special abilities, and readiness to produce from the first day. That does not qualify as beginning. That represents avoidance of chance. Businesses hesitate to provide training. Spending plans tighten. Groups shrink. Therefore, instead of adding new talent and building it, employers seek candidates who can instantly take the place of someone who just left. The outcome creates a narrow point where younger employees compete not only with those their age, but with people recently cut who already hold practice. Then comes the matter of empty positions. Studies indicate that roughly 40% of hiring leaders state their company has placed position listings without plan to fill them. Among those leaders, 62% said the goal involved making current employees feel easy to replace. From outside, it appears as chance. From inside, it serves as a mind control method. For those seeking work, that creates a harsh repeat cycle. Requests receive no answer. Meetings never happen. Refusals arrive months later, if they arrive at all. People begin doubting their choices, their studies, their focus area, their effort, even though the system itself faces blockage. And the longer this continues, the greater the harm. Abilities remain unused, trust weakens, young employees delay leaving home, forming families, or accepting money chances. Not because they lack drive, but because the basic route into steady work vanishes. When beginning roles stop working, the whole work supply line breaks, and the results do not stay within one age group. If younger employees cannot enter, older employees discover equal difficulty returning. For people in their 40s, 50s, and early 60s, the impact often arrives after a job cut they never expected. Many of them followed all advice meant to ensure steady life. They remained loyal. They built practice. They advanced slowly. And then suddenly they face removal anyway. At first comes trust. Years of practice, a strong work record, a professional circle, surely that must hold value. But months pass and replies do not arrive. Instead of viewing as useful, practice begins to count against them. They receive labels as too qualified, too costly, too near retirement. Hiring leaders worry they will not accept lower pay, will not adjust quickly enough, or will not remain long enough to prove worth the expense. None of that receives direct statement, but silence makes it clear. For many older employees, the results prove serious. Time without earnings stretches longer. Saved funds meant for later years move forward to cover current needs. Health coverage becomes ongoing worry. And the longer the empty period lasts, the harder it becomes to explain. There also exists a deeper feeling cost. Work has long linked to personal worth, especially for people who built their sense around supporting a family. When that part disappears, it creates a quiet feeling of shame. Not because they failed, but because the system ceased making space for them. And this marks where the employment field completely fails. Young employees cannot enter. Older employees cannot return. Practice cannot pass to others. Training vanishes. And the workforce becomes at once lacking practice and worn out. That does not represent a short lack of balance. It stands as a built-in failure. Whenever a system begins to break, a whole business area forms around promises to repair it. In the current employment field, that area appears as automatic request tools, quick apply systems, record improvement services, and countless lessons claiming to show a secret fast path to hiring. On the surface, they seem useful. They promise faster work, advantage, and large reach in a field that feels too much, but at the system level, they worsen the issue. When thousands of people use the same tools to send hundreds of requests with one action, employers do not see chance. They see unwanted material. Groups of applicants grow huge overnight. Work records stop receiving attention. Selection becomes machine-based, strict, and without personal touch. And hiring leaders react by stopping roles, raising demands, or simply keeping announcements open without filling them. This explains how we reach position listings that remain active for months while no one receives hiring. Meanwhile, need becomes a sales method. Social platforms fill with familiar stories about job cuts and refusal, followed by offers for a tool, a lesson, or a paid group. The message stays gentle but harmful. If you face difficulty, you simply lack the correct tool. That view moves duty away from the field and back to the person. Instead of questioning why positions lack existence, people receive push to improve themselves without end. Better record, more requests, more qualifications, more effort. And when none succeeds, the result feels personal. Even though the root issue stands built in, the false answer business grows on large numbers, not results. It gains from upset feelings, not fixes. And while individuals spend more time, money, and strength trying to appear different, the employment field itself becomes more blocked, more machine-driven, and less human. Which leads to the power speeding all of this quicker than anything else: artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence often receives presentation as the change point that will either rescue the economy or remove positions. But that view misses something key. No matter how the artificial intelligence account develops, the weight falls on employees. If artificial intelligence succeeds as businesses hope, the first effect becomes greater speed. Fewer people prove needed to complete the same tasks. Beginning roles vanish because training costs too much. Support roles shrink because programs can manage more amount. Hiring does not end completely, but it becomes narrower, quicker, and far less accepting of mistakes. That does not stand as a future issue. It already occurs. And the promise that new roles will suddenly appear does not fix the change period. If younger employees receive no hiring today, they do not gain the practice needed for the roles supposedly arriving tomorrow. Meanwhile, older employees who would normally guide the next group face push-out. The supply line meant to ready people for the future faces removal in real time. Now, consider the other possibility. If artificial intelligence does not provide the gains investors expect, the results do not vanish. Billions of dollars have already entered development, equipment, and guesses. Much of that money ties to the stock field, where regular households now hold greater contact than ever through later year accounts and group funds. If trust breaks, losses do not remain at the top. Field corrections spread outward. Hiring slows more. Job cuts speed up. And the same employees told artificial intelligence would raise output face the results when hopes fall. This marks where the wider lack of balance becomes clear. The top 10% of households now handle roughly half of buyer spending. When growth focuses that heavily, the economy can appear healthy on the surface while most people struggle below. Gains move upward, chances move downward. Therefore, whether artificial intelligence becomes greatly successful or falls short, employees end in the same position. They adjust, they take in, they change their lives around choices they did not make. Artificial intelligence does not cause everything breaking in the employment field, but it speeds patterns already in motion. And it makes one truth completely clear: the old concept of steady life does not return. One of the most usual responses to a poor employment field involves waiting until it passes. To expect that once price rises cool, once loan rates lower, or once the next pattern starts, things will return to usual. But that expectation grows harder to support. What occurs in the employment field does not merely represent a slowdown. It stands as a change in how chance spreads. Businesses have learned they can operate with fewer people. They have learned they can depend more on machines, outside workers, and distant help. And they have learned that employees will accept unsteady conditions when the other choice stands as no work. That alters the system design. Positions no longer build around long-term steady life. They build around quick change, expense control, and fast adjustment. Job cuts no longer serve as final choice. They serve as a control method. And once that thinking takes root, it does not easily reverse. This explains why the present moment feels different. It does not focus only on loan rates or short-term need. It concerns an employment field restructured to value speed over safety. And in that setting, waiting for things to return to past ways becomes a mistake. Because the form of usual many people hope for tied to a system that no longer exists. What we witness instead appears much closer to a United States employment field fall happening in slow movement. Not through one major sudden drop, but through years of wait that quietly reshapes hopes. It tempts, especially on internet platforms, to seek simple answers. Learn this ability. Start that extra work. Improve more. Work longer. Somehow stay ahead of a system shifting below you. But the truth stands that no single method repairs an employment field built on constant change and large job cuts. What truly matters involves clear sight. Understanding that this does not represent personal failure helps people make better choices. It helps younger employees stop viewing refusal as lack of ability. It helps older employees recognize that practice did not suddenly lose worth. The rewards changed. And it helps people who still hold positions understand why the wait feels without end, even when their role officially remains. That clear sight also creates room for more open talks between age groups, within families, at work about what steady life truly appears as now and what hopes require reset. A helpful action simply involves asking an older family member what they earned at your age, adjust it for price changes, and compare it to today. The difference often reveals more than any news title. This does not concern surrender, and it does not concern fear. It concerns viewing the system as it stands, not as we desire it to be. Because when people stop blaming themselves for built-in issues, they can begin supporting each other instead. And in the employment field this week, that form of clear realism might prove the most valuable resource we still hold.